All right, recording has started.
Wonderful.
So, hey everybody, my name is Ellen Gonzalez. I'm a transportation planner here with Arlington County DES. I'm the new staff liaison for the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Today's date is August 21st, 2023. It is 7:06 p.m. and I'll go ahead and pass it off to Cynthia, the chair of the BAC.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Palmer, and it's good to see at least a few people here. I know this is not our usual day or even time of the month, but I was glad that we could get at least one one day in August. And extra thanks to those who joined us for the BAC happy hour last month. I thought that was a big success. It's always really good to see people in person, and the conversations are sometimes more revealing than what gets recorded.
You don't have to clean the dishes, so you don't have to.
I'm not cleaning any dishes, um, but maybe someone can mute. And so one thought was, assuming that we keep holding these meetings online, which has some advantages because it makes them more accessible to more people. But one thought is to hold quarterly happy hours that would be completely optional, and we would encourage staff and any BAC people and friends and PAC to join us quarterly for happy hours around different parts of Arlington. So if people like that idea, you can look forward to another happy hour soon. Let's do introductions, and the introductory question this time will help us prepare for next month's meeting. So if everyone could please introduce yourself, and then if you would like, suggest a question or an issue that you are hoping to see addressed at next month's backpack discussion on traffic signaling. So I actually have a whole page of questions that I would like to see addressed at next month's signals discussion. So I'm going to go last and just add whatever has not been mentioned. So why don't we go through the list and hear your names and what suggestions you have for signaling in questions about signaling in Arlington, or issues you'd like to discuss in that next meeting. I'm going to go through the list, starting at the top with Brian Shelton.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm a transportation planning intern working for Arlington County. I think an interest of mine regarding the signaling would be looking at more prohibited right turns on red.
Great. That is a good one, and I did not have it on my list. Collier.
Hey everyone, Collier Cook from the Ballston neighborhood. I have a bunch, but I'll pass for now. So, but thank you for the opportunity for asking.
Okay, and if you would like to email me, that is another option, because we will be compiling these and I'm going to send them to the team. You can stay anonymous and do it behind the scenes with an email or a text message. That works too. Dina.
Yeah, I suppose I would like to see a kind of a lessons learned for past Arlington construction projects. You know, so we might be able to prevent and not screw it up twice.
Okay. That sounds useful. David Ansel.
Yeah, this may be an obvious. Oh, yeah, I'm David Ansell. Thank you, Cynthia. This may seem like an obvious one, but I'm frequently around Arlington in different parts on my bike, and at too many intersections, when it turns green, it's not synced up with, it's time to go for bikes. There's just a disconnect at too many intersections. Big picture, I'd like to see in my wildest dreams cars to have big buttons and bikes to have the right of way, but maybe that'll be in my next lifetime.
That's my fantasy too. What a coincidence.
Oh, and one other thing, I find the green road stripings that's dedicated to bikes. I think that's really useful, not just for the bicyclists, but also I think it's a visual cars that makes those, I think, useful. And I'd like to see us have more of those at especially busy cross intersections.
Wonderful. Elwin.
Yeah, I'd love to hear a discussion about lead pedestrian intervals. It seems like very few intersections in Arlington have them, which give the people crossing the street the first priority to cross, give them like a head start before cars can go. Being interesting to hear what it takes to get those installed, and how we can maybe create more flexibility to get them installed more countywide.
Great. And Eric Goodman.
Hi. I think one thing, since I'm on the pedestrian committee as well, I think I'll mention just timing for crossing. Sometimes I think the timing in places is just way too short for folks to get across some of the intersections. And I know there are sort of rules of thumb on doing that, but I think in some places there's just not enough time, or there isn't a good refuge for people who are trying to cross the street that just can't cross at the speeds that are available to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Hanna.
Yeah, Mike Hanna, Arlington Heights. A couple things just to follow up. In terms of the lead interval, it would be nice to know what the criteria is for setting that. It feels like it's just enough time for someone to step into the lane for the car to get the green and turn right into them. They seem too short. The other thing is, it would be nice if there was some sort of labeling on intersections to let us know whether they're on timers, I have to get the bike up over the curb to get to the BAC button, or if they have the electric eyes that I think a lot of them have now, but you kind of pull up to an intersection and you're guessing and you kind of wait there for a while wondering if something's going to happen. So it'd be nice if there's some sort of an indication where you could look real quick and say, okay, I have to go to the BAC button or I don't.
Really good point. Kevin O'Brien.
Hey everybody, Kevin O'Brien, Virginia organizer with the Washington Area Bicyclist Association. I think leading pedestrian interval should just be standard, and would love to hear how we really can make that happen. And especially, I think when that's integrated with getting rid of BAC buttons wherever possible, that should just be the default, to give folks a head start, and that should just be the default.
Excellent. Leslie.
Hi, Leslie Tierstein from Penrose. Just thinking of something I loved going up and down avenues in New York City, a special light just for bicycles that indicates when you have a turn possibility and when you shouldn't turn, or when you should go straight or stop. very. So I sat at an intersection the other day confused because it was a bike lane only in my direction, and all I saw was a pedestrian signal. And I said, oh, what am I supposed to do here? So a bike signal would be nice if appropriate.
Great. Nicole Dean.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicole Dean. I'm joining in today to talk about one of my sanitary sewer projects. So I'm not as knowledgeable on this, but it's been really great hearing all the biking concerns around the community. Thanks for having me today.
Thanks for coming. All right, Pam.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Pam Van Hine with the Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and we've sent the signaling guy a whole bunch of questions already, a lot dealing with accessibility, because we've had a lot of questions about that. But my number one question is barn stance signaling, because I love them, and I want to know how that's going to work on Route 1 if it's at grade.
Excellent. We all want to know. Randy.
I'd just like to say, second what Mike said, I think the lead time on the pedestrian lead signals is too short, and a pedestrian barely notices that anything has happened and the cars are coming. And on the indicators, there should be indicators everywhere, whether the pedestrian is to expect anything or not, because otherwise you can just stand there, or you always have to press the beg button. So I would agree with Mike on both of those.
Me too. Raymond.
Hello, everyone. Raymond Duran with Bike Arlington and Capital Bike Share. My question would be at the intersection of the WNOD and Columbia Pike, that intersection during the whole pandemic was like a automatic crosswalk signal with a timer. Now it's a beg button where you have to hit the button to get a crosswalk. I've seen people stand at that intersection for 2 light cycles waiting for a crosswalk signal, not understanding to hit the button. And then I recently just got a complaint from a Arlington resident last week at Bike Arlington of the same situation. He's didn't know, finally hit the button, got a crosswalk. So that's my question for that intersection.
Thank you. I have written in at least 2 or 3 times about that intersection as well. I don't know
Okay,
what
so it's
happened.
not only me that haven't gotten an answer. Okay.
Yeah, and actually we've been through this twice in the past. This is Steve Offit, where we got the county to put it on automatic recall because that is the way it should be, particularly for eastbound traffic who can't see the traffic signal. And they did. And I do not know who or why they've gone back, but this was something that had been agreed upon and was something that was supposed to be permanent. And so, yeah, I just noticed this the other day myself and was relatively irked.
Same here. I know it's a VDOT road, but I thought the county controlled the signals. I'm not sure. We'll find out.
No, the county controls the signals for sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, Aaron.
Hi, Aaron Schutz. I'm in the Lion Park neighborhood and just started up my bike commute again up to Yorktown. So, yay, back to school. I'm interested in using signals to help control behavior, especially speeding. I know VDOT and others are worried about throughput, how many cars you can get through, and certain roads, better signaling to slow the average speed down. I'm on not too far from Washington Boulevard coming up from Route 50 into Clarendon, and 70 miles an hour is not unheard of. And we've got signals there that you could change them more often and make it safer for people crossing at the flashers or other places. So do something for safety, not just for throughput.
That works for me. Steve.
Hi, I'm Steve Offit, and I'm now reporting from the courthouse area. It used to be in Pentagon City, I should say. So I would like to know about the sensors. So the little white cameras are supposed to pick up cyclists who are at the intersections, and they by and large do. But every once in a while, I've been waiting, for a left turn or something like that, and it's not picking me up. And I'm mostly going to be curious about, does anyone ever check this besides waiting for someone to report it? Because, I could report it, but honestly, by the time I get home, I've forgotten, and then it just never gets reported and never gets fixed. So is there a system for making sure that the sensors are calibrated and working properly and actually do pick up vehicles and cyclists and everybody else? So that was one thing. And also this is a more specific thing, but at the intersection of Doom, I really think that the no right on red signal that comes on needs to come on about 2 or 3 seconds earlier, because the right turning drivers are waiting, and then as soon as they see the traffic slowing down, that's when they turn right, which is exactly the time that the traffic starts to cross. So that's a specific ask I'm looking for, but I just experienced that literally today. So anyway, next.
All right, and then we have Zach.
Hi, I'm Zach. I am calling in today from the Clarendon Courthouse neighborhood. Oh, sorry, let me open my camera. So many great things have already been mentioned. On the subject of no turn on red, there have been a lot of signs put into the Clarendon area on Clarendon Boulevard between Clarendon and Courthouse. I'm actually curious about the placement of those signs, because I find that when I'm driving, I know that there's no turn on red, but the signs are not super visible. And I'm wondering if it's poor placement that makes drivers all ignore those signs, or simply they're not used to them and there needs to be enforcement. But definitely the placement of those signs needs to be in the actual vision of a person driving a vehicle.
That does seem pretty basic. All right, thank you. Did I miss anybody? Okay, so this is super helpful, and I'm going to write this all up, and I'm going to combine my own questions, some of which have to do with asking the county if we can have their signal maps. Like, do they have a map for lights, for signals that are on LPI? Do they have a map for signals that are that require the BAC buttons, the automated recall, so-called? It would be great if there is data, if we can have a look and see some of the patterns. But I will compile a list of all our questions, and I know that the PAC has a list. So among us, we will have a lot to talk about next month on the 13th with the signal crew from Arlington County. Let's move along, because I know we're already behind. And the next up is Elwin, who will introduce himself just briefly as our new liaison.
Yeah, thanks, Cynthia. Like, for folks don't know, I'm the new staff liaison. I work with Arlington County's DES, basically the transportation planning and capital projects management team. I'm basically serving as the liaison since the last staff member, Leah Gerber, just left the county this past June. For folks who don't know, she just accepted a fellowship in Germany, so she's currently in Berlin as we speak, taking German classes before she starts her fellowship as part of the program. She might come back, but it's unclear because it's a year-long program for her. But regardless, I'm here for you guys. I'm the new staff liaison. A little bit about me: I live in Northeast DC. I'm originally from Florida. But I've worked all over the place. Used to work for Montgomery County for a few years. Before that, I was working for the city of Nashville. I've been here with Arlington since last October, so almost a year. Yeah, here as a resource, as a spiritual guide for you guys. Whatever you guys need, feel free to shout. I don't want to take up too much time because I know Nicole is waiting for us. So I guess I'll pass it off to Nicole for her project.
Thank you. Welcome officially, Ellen. So next we have Nicole to talk about Spout Run and the sewer relining. Since I work in petrochemicals, I'm very interested in the piping materials, but I think that this discussion will focus on the bicycle detour. So welcome, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. So yeah, I'm here to talk about the sewer project and potential bike impacts. So I'll just introduce myself first. I'm Nicole Dean. Actually, I'll be changing my last name to Proto as of very recently. So if y'all email me and see Dean Proto, that's why. But I am an engineer in the Water Sewer Streets Bureau, specifically in the Sewer Streets team. So I help manage our sanitary sewer projects, more specifically this Spout Run deep sanitary sewer relining that's coming up. So if y'all don't mind, I can start to share my screen. It'll just be easier if I walk you through that way. So let me know when you can see it.
Yep.
Awesome. So I just wanted to share first, I saw in the agenda, the link is there, which is great. But we do have a website for this project. If you just go to Google and type like Spout Run Sewer, it'll come up very easily. So if you don't have the link or remember, if you just type Spout Run Sewer, it's very easy to get to the website. My contact information is on here. That will be changing to our construction manager's contact soon once the project starts construction. But right now mine's on here. And so kind of like, I just want to introduce y'all to the project a little bit. So the Spout Run Sewer, it is about 3,400 linear feet long. It's 33 inches of diameter. So it's a large diameter sewer trunk. It was built back in like the late 1930s. It's about like 86, 87 years old. We did an inspection of the sewer back in 2019. You can see some pictures on our website. You can see some cracks, infiltration, some exposed rocks. It had exposed rebar and others. So basically, we want to rehabilitate the pipe. The location of this pipe, I'll show y'all kind of on Google Maps. It starts up at Spout Run Parkway and runs kind of over to North Nash. It runs under Langston Boulevard and I-66. It gets up to like 115 feet deep at points. You can see that on this profile that we have on our website here. So it gets really deep. So I think it was installed by like tunneling or something back in the day. Don't know who decided to do that. But so yeah, so in order to rehabilitate the sewer, it's one of our critical sewers. It carries a lot of flow. We're going with the rehabilitation method called relining, specifically CIPP lining. We have a website about lining specifically on the website somewhere. Just want to make sure that message wasn't for me, sorry. So yeah, so in order, and so lining will extend the life of the pipe at least another 50 years, up to 100 years. We've been seeing in other projects. So it'll structurally fix the pipe and extend the life of it for a while. But in order to do this rehabilitation, we have to bypass the flow, it's called. So we have to redirect the flow, kind of build a temporary pipe to direct the flow while we fix this pipe up, because we can't have any flow in it while we do this. And sorry, one more quick background thing. Quick lesson for anybody who wants to know a little bit about it. So relining, basically, it's this fabric that's kind of like soaked in resin, and it's dragged through the pipe. Then we run hot water through it to expand it and cure it, harden it to the existing pipe. And that's kind of the whole process. So that's why we need the flow out of there. And also so that we can continue sanitary sewer service for others. So the project is anticipated to start in a few weeks. we are hoping to start September 11th that week. We got the VDOT permit for this project. We are still working on the MPS permit, which we expect to receive soon. So hence that's the reason we plan on starting that week. It may be delayed a little bit, but at this point we do think we should be able to start it fairly soon, mid-September. So that's why I'm here to talk to y'all about it. So yeah, and it should last till the beginning of March approximately. So I'll show you guys the bypass for this project. So as I mentioned, the bypass, we got to redirect the flow. This yellow line is, or here, I'll show you a better image for a second. This is kind of the whole length of that sewer we're fixing from Spout Run all the way to North Nash, running under Langston I-66. So we have this bypass pipe. It's shown in the red. I'll be updating this image on the website. Just so y'all know, we'll be updating the website periodically throughout the project so that you guys will have continuous updates on it. We'll also be sending out letters and notifications and such so that all communities nearby and anyone who wants to check in the project will be updated. So ignore these don't exist, just the red line. So this red line is where we'll be placing temporary pipe for our temporary bypass. It'll be HDPE, it'll be welded together. And as you follow this red line, you can see, this is why I'm here to talk to y'all today, is the bypass kind of impacts the trail at several points, but minimally. I'll walk you through kind of what to expect. So here's Custis Trail. So we've got up at Spout Run Parkway, it starts to run down through North Courthouse, past North Ewell, past 21st Street North, and we're aware of the VDOT bridge project around here. They won't conflict. Through this grass area, and then on the side of Custis Trail. So the bypass pipe will, for the most part, run above ground. So all along this grass area here, it'll just be sitting on the ground. The bypass pipe will be about 18 inches in diameter, about 1.5 feet. So here, it'll be running alongside Custis Trail. And as you can see, I called out here. We'll start with this first place where it will impact. Oops, sorry, go ahead. Okay. So yeah, so this first place where there will be an impact is we'll actually be building starting at Nash back to here. So this will be kind of later in the project. It'll take about 2 months to set up the bypass. So this will probably be later in the fall. So luckily it'll be a little colder, hopefully less bike activity at the time. So we'll stay out of y'all's way. But it'll be easier for me to show it on here, this near map right here. And actually, let me kind of go back a month so there's less trees. So it's this access path here right off of 20th Road North. So we'll be burying the pipe under here. That work will take a day, and we'll limit the work between 9 and 3. So we've met with the Trails Coordination Team in Arlington, and we also had an on-site meeting with Parks and some of the Trail Coordination Team members last week as well. So they advised to only do the work between 9 and 3, which we can absolutely stick to. So we'll be burying the pipe under here during that time, so it's during less active hours, and we'll be providing a temporary access path so trail users can still get onto and off the trail here. We'll be using this existing ramp and then be putting down some temporary mats so that trail users can come on here, cross over while we're burying over here. And I would like to note that over here in this area, we will have a staging area where they'll be setting down some pipes and welding some pipes together. So just to note, there'll just be some materials and construction workers here. So again, this will be about a day. It won't impact trail access. We'll make sure to have a temporary access path. And again, just to note, so the bypass pipe, if you can follow my cursor, it'll be running along the edge of the grass here, buried under here, running along the edge of the grass here. So we do anticipate keeping this pipe entirely off the trail. Depending on how it goes, it may be the slightest bit on the edge of this trail, but we do plan on keeping it entirely to the edge so the trail won't narrow. Or if it narrows a little bit, we'll make sure it doesn't go below the required 8 feet, but we do plan on keeping it entirely to the side. And while we're bringing the pipe here, we will be, if we're closing about half the trail, we'll have flaggers out at the time. So we'll have flaggers out that'll tell bikes to stop and walk their bike through. It won't be completely closed, only partially closed to allow us to bring those pipes in. And that'll be for about 15 to 20 minutes. It won't take us very long to get the pipes in there and on the side. So hopefully you don't catch that 15 minutes. But if you do, there'll be a flagger that will wave you down and just have you walk your bike through. So we'll continue to run it through the edge here. And I hate to show y'all an aerial view. I don't know if you noticed, but it's not accessible right now, but there was someone who rode their bike through here and did an image, and it doesn't work now. It was so sad. I was really excited for that during this meeting, but I got to show y'all the aerial. So we'll keep running around the edge here, along the edge of this grass, exactly following the plans that I have here. And so in order to get the VDOT permit, they approved this alternative plan. They didn't like this one. So this pink line is actually what we'll be doing at this point, and I'll make sure to have the website updated for that too shortly. So you'll see that it crosses under Scott Street right about here. And then we will have it cross, so then it'll run along the edge of the grass again, still not on that trail. And about here where it switches from that like black asphalt color to the kind of creamish whitish sidewalk, we'll cut through. So we'll be cutting under the trail, cutting across Langston, and then the pipe will run on this median, all the way on this median, until it runs on this little sidewalk here, which is actually closed right now anyways, cut across Nash into this manhole we have over here. And we're also aware of these builders and coordinating with them. We're also coordinating with the tunnel rehabilitation project, so all should work. So yeah, very long explanation to get us to probably what you guys are most interested about is when we cut under this trail here. So we will close the trail at this point when we cut under it, but we will have a diversion onto Langston Boulevard during that. And that, again, that'll be a day's worth of work. It'll be between 9 and 3. And hopefully it'll be a little bit later in the fall time, a little bit cooler. Maybe we'll catch a light rain day, so there's even less users. But yeah, this will be only a day duration. And this is the MOT that was put together for that, with some good input from our trails coordination team. So this is what we plan on doing for users coming in this way, for users coming in both ways. We'll have a trail work ahead sign, trail closed ahead sign, little diversion sign, and then the barriers with the trail closed and detour sign. So that'll be on both sides to provide adequate warning for this. And it will say trail. We'll be using signs that actually say trail. We're getting them all like fabricated and put together because we don't want anyone to be confused whether it's road or trail. So it will definitely say trail. And this orange line that I have drawn in here represents where we'll have these longitudinal channeling devices. Sorry, that's a tongue twister. So we'll have these devices. It'll look just like this, kind of like this. That's on South 4 Mile Run right now, actually, these barriers. So I actually walked on this very recently. There were cars driving right next to it, and I felt totally fine. So it will look like this. The trail will still have good width, and we'll be using temporary yellow tape to delineate the lane still. And you can actually see I measured on near map, so this trail is showing 13 feet. Not including the curb, it's 12 feet. With the curb, it's 14 feet. So very adequate width still. We'll make sure to delineate the lane still and have proper warning everything. We have a barrier here too, so that people don't accidentally just keep on biking on. So we'll be using this existing ramp here for users to come on and off. And over here, we'll be building a asphalt ramp. So, and it'll be at a 45-degree angle. We'll make sure to have a 4-inch PVC pipe under it so that any water can run through, it won't pond. We'll also make sure to have a work vehicle parked in front of the transition to provide extra protection. And of course, we'll have typical lane closure signs as well, following the VDOT standards that I reference here, but I didn't want to draw it on here because I didn't want to put too many signs on here that look confusing. So again, this is between North Scott and North Quinn on Langston Boulevard. We'll have this short diversion around the area where we'll cut for a day. And yeah, I think that is everything. Ellen, is there anything I missed that I should mention?
I think you pretty much covered it. I believe Dana had a question.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
a quick question.
Mhm.
You talked about a ramp with 45-degree angle. Are you, it's going to be ADA compliant, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
45-degree angle isn't ADA. 1 in 12 is the slope for an ADA compliant ramp.
1 in 12. Oh, I was talking to when I said 45, I was talking about not that, sorry. I don't know why I'm using my arms to explain it. Not going down, but the way you get on. So like 45, like it's easier for me to draw it.
Okay.
Like this is what I'm talking about here, not going down.
But we're talking, but these things are going to be ADA compliant. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll be sure to talk to the contractor and make sure. We'll be able to demolish the curb and reform it at the end as needed. So we'll be able to build this how we need to make sure that it helps with that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll just leave it for open discussion. Any questions, concerns?
So this is not a bike question, but since we will be biking alongside sanitary sewer pipe, will it stink?
Pipe shouldn't stink. If it does, certainly give us a call and we'll look into it. The only thing that may stink is so we will, and I don't think it would reach out here, but when we're relining, there may be a smell of plastic in the air. That might be a little more stinky than the sewer. But it shouldn't. And we also have advice online on our CIPP lining page. You can run taps in your home. That'll help with the smell. If you notice the smell coming into your home, you can run your taps and that should help dampen it and keep it out. But yeah, there shouldn't be strong sewage odor. There will probably be a plastic odor depending on how close you are to the lining manhole. But otherwise, there shouldn't be stink.
Nicole, Mike Hanna, real quick. There's no plan for air releases on the temporary line, right? It's a pump
No.
line, I'm assuming. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I see Brandy has a question.
Just had a comment. If you've ever smelled what comes out of a sewer when they're relining it, you know that there's a 99.9% chance that it is carcinogenic. So hold your breath as you go by, because there's just no mercy on the poor people who are next to this process, who have to breathe the fumes.
Yeah, and I can go back to, so the fumes shouldn't be by the bike trail, luckily. So we'll be lining from this manhole that's all the way up here, kind of in that forest area between and Spout Run. So that smell hopefully shouldn't reach anyone. Then we'll also be lining from the manhole over in the median out here by I-66. So we're hoping it won't reach too many residents. It's kind of in forest and in the middle of the highway, but yeah, certainly.
Yeah, so this is Dana. So this is a different process than you use down on Eads, where you use a polystyrene liner that had open flames when they started the system in the morning, 5 or 6, 7 years ago. That was pretty bad.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that situation. I have been with the county for a year, so I don't anticipate open flames, but we do have a boiler truck that does have a little flame coming out of it at the top because we do heat the water. But I can't think of large open flames. It's just a pipe with a little, like, really tiny flame.
If I can find a photo.
Yeah, I'm interested. Yeah, sorry, I'm not aware of that, and I don't expect anything.
Breathalyzer.
Oh, sorry, what was that? Oh, sorry, I missed it.
So who else has questions? Maybe David Ansel? Ansel?
Yes. Yes, thank you. Just out of curiosity, what is the issue with the current sewer? Is it leakage, or what is being repaired? Just to put it in context.
Yeah, so the current issue with the sewer, it's a very old in age. It's a concrete pipe, and concrete pipes are typically expected to last about 100 years, and it's about 86, 87 years at this point. So it's almost near the end of its life, and it's a very critical sewer in our county. It carries a lot of flow. It's one of our larger trunk sewers, so we want to make sure this thing doesn't go bad, especially given the depth of it at points. So I'm pulling up a couple pictures on our website. You can see in this photo, you can see a lot of rocks, which basically means that there's corrosion. The walls have been degrading, so they're getting thinner, and they will continue to corrode more rapidly as it gets older in age. You can also see some infiltration here. So there are cracks and joints, which are allowing ground water and other infiltration to come into the pipe, which also is not good. And again, yeah, there's some large cracks like shown here in this photo. So it's cracking and degrading, and we want to structurally repair it.
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Happy to talk about it. And I think, was there another question? Sorry. Okay. And also I see the comment in the chat about ADA. So we have already bidded out the project. So the specs and everything have already been bid, but certainly I can talk to the contractor about it and make sure when we're discussing details in the field to bring it up. And here, I'll put it in my notes right now. I have your chat copied. Eric?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for such a thorough presentation for a one-day diversion. We have projects all over the place that are months or years, and we don't get anything close to this much respect, so to speak. So thank you for letting us be a part of the process here, short as it is.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to hear that. I appreciate the input. Yeah, I grew up in Pennsylvania. I moved down here a couple years ago, and we certainly didn't have a biking community or as much biking paths and things like this. So it was really great getting to learn a lot on this project about the biking community and trying to accommodate.
Mike?
Yeah, what's the plan in terms of either ongoing inspection and or signage that would allow someone to note if the contractor's not following the plan? It would be really easy to see the bike path as a nice little access path for him to have equipment on and move things around and not follow his own MOT, which we see all the time with construction.
Yes. So sorry, just making sure I understand correctly. So you're talking about just general project signage, right?
Well, what we've been asking for a long time for a lot of these projects that have MOT is a sign that says, for issues, related to MOT, or if you note that the path is blocked or something that specifically says, please call this number, so that somebody biking along who sees that the bike path is blocked, as it has been more than half the time next to the construction site here at Courthouse, at the old Windy site, but that's not your fault. I'm not going to blame you. to that, but it happens a lot. So it would be nice if we had somewhere to immediately call so it can be addressed if this contractor isn't a good citizen.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I was just working on and submitting a form to order. We were ordering 4 project signs that we were going to place throughout the project, saying, this is the Spout Run Sewer project. For questions, concerns, it was going to have a number on it. So we should have those placed throughout the project so we can make sure to have one on the trail.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, and then we also have, as I mentioned earlier, we have our website that has contacts on it, and I will be updating this to our construction manager, who will be much more in tune to the day-to-day construction activities throughout the project. So you can also come to the website and send him an email or give him a call as well.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. That was wonderful to hear. As was just said, how much your effort you're putting into to make sure that one day works out for bicycle riders and pedestrians.
Yeah, happy to get all your feedback. Thanks all so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we'll move along if there's no other question out there. All right, thank you. So the next item on our agenda is BAC membership. It says we're going to go over the membership numbers. I don't even know what they are. Maybe Elwin happens to know.
Yeah, I believe we have 7 members that are listed on the website currently, which might be close to the minimum amount that we can.
We only have 7.
Yeah.
Okay. We used to have a few more.
I can share my screen. Okay, so this is off the BAC website. Here's the list of all of our current members as of the time I joined as the liaison. So yeah.
I count 12.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. Just wondering if I believe the minimum amount is like 13 members for the count committee. So we're basically interested in maybe expanding the membership size to get more folks on the committee.
Well, the charter says a minimum of 15. So I guess the action is to the county manager.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, we talked about the charter beforehand. I believe this is being revised or updated. I'm not sure if anyone on the call was involved with this next update. This is showing the charter as of March 5th, 2012. But there was some discussion about maybe revising the charter to bring the bring the language up to current standards, and to see if folks are interested in expanding the size of the committee, or if folks are pretty happy with the way things are.
So we worked on the charter many months ago, and we submitted a lot of suggestions, and then Arlington, I believe, dropped the effort to revise the charters. I don't know where that stands. But in any case, it would be good to have more members, it sounds like. Whether we're at 7, as you said, or it looks like 12. Yeah, I mean, this relates to our next topic too, which is the voting. We could talk about both at once even. I mean, it's very hard to get a quorum sometimes, and the people who are most active on the committee are not necessarily the ones on the list on your screen. Some of those individuals don't come to meetings anymore, whereas others are religious about showing up, even on the 21st of August, on days that are not ours. So we do need to, I don't know what's the best process. Maybe if simply by sending emails or whatever initially, just to express interest in actually joining, because we have active BAC people who are not on the official list and vice versa.
Maybe we can ask Pam for her experience related to the Pedestrian Advisory Committee and how that has been going in terms of process. Are you still on, Pam?
Yeah, I'm still on. Although I've been running around doing things while you're having other discussions. Thank you. Cynthia is right that we were asked to look at our bylaws, and we had great recommendations, and then there was all of a sudden it was like, never mind, you can just keep what you got. And I think your maximum is 15 and ours is 15, and we've never had 15 people. I think the most we've ever had is 12. We currently have 11, which is a nice odd number, so it's easier to get a quorum. We have more, our members seem more aligned with actually participating in PAC. We don't have a lot of people who aren't members coming to our meetings on a regular basis, and most of our members do come to our meetings, and do participate. And I don't know why there's a difference, but there is. In some ways, it would be nice to encourage the county manager to look at our bylaws again, because it does cover things like number of members, how many years you can be on it, and if you don't participate in X number of meetings, you kind of get kicked off. Because right now we have no way of getting rid of people who are really inactive. So there would certainly be value to starting this up again, I think. But we haven't done that either. It's like, okay, the county doesn't want us to do this, so we'll just lay low for a little bit and continue.
And, Ellen, you're kind of new, so you wouldn't be necessarily familiar, but there's been a variety of things that have happened in the past. For a long time, the committee was very ad hoc. Anyone who came was essentially a member. And then for a while, we had to be invited. We would get an official letter from the county saying, you are now asked to be part of the bicycle or pedestrian, I presume pedestrian was similar, advisory committee, and then you would accept. And the last, I don't know, a couple of years, you think, Cynthia, that seems to have kind of fizzled out, and we're back to a little bit more of the ad hoc perspective on that.
We're all unofficial members of the BAC and PAC. We were supposed to, somebody was supposed to be sending us letters. David or Leah would compile the list every year and send it to somebody in the county manager's office, and then they were supposed to approve it and send us all official letters, and she was busy doing something else and it never happened. So none of us have official letters, but we're kind of all assumed to be members.
Yeah, so in a way, maybe there are 0 members of the committee, to be honest.
Well, technically, legally, that's true. We just ignore that. It's not our fault. We did our best.
Yeah, this is definitely something I could look into. I could get the this information, where to figure out where we are with regards to the charter update, and maybe see
Talk
if
to David about it too.
I know that I was a non-member for the first 8 or so years that I attended every single month. So, and for many of us, it doesn't really matter if you're official or not. I mean, some people, I guess, like to be official. But it does become an issue when there's voting. If we need to stick with the official list, and then I end up, emailing people and texting people, Mr. Offit. So it does, getting a quorum can be difficult, and there have been instances where we worked really hard on letters and then did not have enough of a quorum, but we didn't even know what a quorum was, so we ended up not signing on to letters to Mr. Schwartz because we weren't sure we could even represent the BAC after all that work. And I think that somebody has a hand up, and whose hand is that? Or maybe two. Wait, Eric and then Dana.
Hi, this is Eric. If I recall, it was Valerie Mosley that was had brought this to us a couple times. So I would think that we probably want to hear from her again as far as what the and I don't know if she's still doing what she was doing when she talked to us, more about 6 months ago. But I would think that she would be the best person to go back to, Ellen. I think also there was some discussion about term limits too. So that after like 3 terms or something, they were saying that people would have to sit out. So I'm not sure if that is still something that's potentially going to happen or not. But we were supposed to hear back from her, and I believe, with David out for some time and Leah out at other times, that maybe that just didn't happen.
Yeah, that's good to know. Thanks for the heads up. I'll be sure to follow up with her to see what happened and who dropped the ball, and try to figure out next steps forward.
Dana.
Yeah, the charter says renewable 2-year terms. It doesn't say how many. So it's just like the House of Representatives. Bring on John Dingell. Okay, and the other thing is, a quorum is the people that show up. There's no discussion in the charter of quorum. And so a quorum is whoever shows up, and it passes, with reasonable prudence by more than 50% of the people that show up saying yes. So, there's no requirement in the, there's nothing in the charter that talks about super majorities or anything like that, or a requirement to get, 8 out of 15, voting in favor of something. If 6 people show up and 4 are in favor of it, it passes. Let's just apply a few snooze, you lose.
That is not how the PAC does it. We just have a strict majority of our members, whether they attended or not.
Well, yeah, but if you ask a member for a vote and they don't vote, I would argue that counts as an abstention, not a non-participation. Because we waste a lot of time chasing these rabbits when we put something out, we email it, read it, don't read it, at some level I don't care, but if you have an opportunity to vote and you choose not to, then that is not a non-participation. That's a conscious abstention. And then it's just the majority of the people that do vote. So
that makes sense to me. I mean, it's easy to vote sort of in meetings, and it's so much harder to vote, you know, online in the course of 4 or 5 days or whatever we have. When we have a letter or something that needs, you know, that needs sign off, that's when it gets really tricky. And that's why we need to update the list on the website, the list of who is truly a member, and who's not. And I think there are a number of people who surely deserve to be members because they show up and they do the work, and they're not even members. So that would be great, just in terms of equity and in terms of making voting easier, because it'll be, you know, that people who are actually engaged, and not the people who I haven't seen for a couple of years. Let's see, Eric, did you have your hand up still, or is that that hand from before?
That is the hand from before. I'll figure out how to
Okay.
take that down. Thank you.
Okay, and then Jillian.
Hey everyone, sorry I was late. I have said this before, but I actually think the way this committee works, it makes more sense not really to have members at all, and then to have an executive team that's elected by people who have showed up a certain amount of time over the last year, and then and leave it at that. And then when it comes to things like representing ideas and perspectives to the county manager, 99% of the time we are either totally in alignment or there's different views that can easily just be put side by side. Some people think X, other people think Y. So you don't need to go into a situation where people are voting and it's one or the other. That the only, I think, counterexample is when we sign on to someone else's letter where there's differing views and there's not an opportunity to say, oh, but there's these differing views. But that's okay. We should just write our own letters anyway. So I think that, and I'm happy to dig up the email with the more specific proposal if people don't have it, but having been on this committee for a while and chaired this committee, I actually think we have a lot of great energy and great participation on this committee. And the best way to harness that is actually to get away from a membership model that is exclusive and instead work on a model where everybody can come, it's open to the public, and there's an executive team that is elected from the people who have shown up majority of the time of the last year or two.
Steve.
Yeah, thanks. So I completely agree with Jillian with one sort of like addition, which is I would love it if the county, through the county manager or some other means, would figure out a way to encourage additional membership from some communities where we may not have, close relations, or, I mean, I'm not sure it's our job as the Bicycle Advisory Committee to go and expand our own membership. I think the county should be reaching out to the various communities within the county to make sure that it's well represented. So completely on board with Jillian's, those people who come are the people who have the kind of vote, etc. But it would be great to have additional people that the county is able to find.
Yeah, I love to hear about that. Has there ever been a time where the BAC basically set out like kind of like a list of which communities they would like to be represented?
Yeah,
we definitely have.
I would turn that back around and say, what does the county manager want, right? So does the county, I mean, it's not us who decides for the county manager. So who needs to be represented? It's the county manager saying, who do I want to hear from so that I can be the best county manager possible?
Yeah, a few years ago, we got, the BAC and in the collective got beat up because the county staff, let's just leave it at that, suggested that we weren't as inclusive as they might hope us to be. And the pushback from virtually everybody on the BAC was, cycling is one of those activities where you represent everybody regardless of whether they're at the table or not. So while it really might be good to have an hourly employee, a Latino hourly worker on the BAC to represent what they know is their issues in cycling, it's not likely we're going to be able to successfully get them and retain them because they have a day job or a night job. So the key was, we said we could do this, but but the county kept saying you need to become more diverse and you need to represent the full county, and they threatened to, they tried to get members, and they came and went. So it's kind of, you dance with the ones that come to the party.
Yeah, that was a difficult chapter in BAC history. Randy, I see your hand and we haven't heard from you in a while.
As one of those who got a letter from the county manager that I interpreted as strongly suggesting that I resign because I was not diverse and a bicycle rider after all. And I wear Lycra most of the time, and I wasn't supposed to be here anymore, so I resigned. And as Dana says, nothing came of that. We're not more diverse. We spent years trying to get more women, and we finally did, by golly. And we got one as our chair, and she's doing a great job. We've had two chairs before, and they both did great jobs. So in a sense, we were working on diversity all the time. But it's very difficult, as every county committee and commission has found. It's very difficult to, and as Dana said, it's difficult to get people from the immigrant community in particular because they're very, very busy with other things. And this is just not going to be on the top of their list. So it's not easy to handle.
Well said, Randy. And being on BAC and doing the work of BAC is a lot of work. So it's an expectation. It's a large expectation on people, and it's not always that fulfilling, or let's say it's not always clear that the county really wants to hear from us. But that's a part two of this of this discussion, and I see more hands. Eric or Jillian, did you have more to add?
Yeah, this is Eric. Just a couple things. First, I agree with what mostly what everybody has said. I think we just need to keep trying to get more diverse people on the committee. I think it's it's not something you do one time. It's something that you kind of continuously work at. So I think we need to kind of reevaluate every once in a while and say, where else can we, put out, letting people know that we're looking for more members. And just the other thing about the question about, just whoever is there votes. We have had some incidents in the past where we've had maybe some issues where and one neighborhood wasn't happy about something, so they basically packed our meeting. And if we kind of did something like that, we could end up where, you know, if anybody could vote that's in the room, you could. It's only happened maybe a couple times where you know, things like that have happened when we had to go to a vote or forced to vote. But we've had kind of like a relatively irate neighborhood of people that have come to our committee because they didn't want something in their backyard type of thing. So that is certainly a possibility. So that's, I think that's one sort of direction why you may want to have voting members. Thanks.
Thank you. That was helpful. Jillian.
Yeah, so we actually have had some meetings with some more diverse voices, and those have been ones where we went out in the community and did stuff. So we had some on the Pike where we met there in person. We've had some bike rides that have very much reflected the neighborhood that the bike rides were held in. And so if we're going back to in-person stuff, I think that's a great way to do it. But to the points that have been made, a lot of people weren't interested in signing up to be member of something, but they were interested in lending their voices and discussing issues that were, of interest to them, especially when they could participate easily. So that again is a reason to speak for the structure where we don't have members. And to Eric's point, I strongly recommend still having a elected board, or whatever you want to call it, executive committee that is the one that does the drafting of whatever needs to be drafted, and that we make sure that various points of view are represented. So if there were a meeting where, and that the elected group be elected only from people who have showed up from a significant number of meetings, which in the case that Eric made an example of, if there was a particular neighborhood issue and we had one meeting on it, and that people from that neighborhood wanted to include their position on a particular issue, the letter to the county manager could just be, some people thought this, other people thought that. Or if the executive committee thought that it was not ripe for writing the county manager, then they would not write the county manager on that particular issue. We have lots of meetings that do not result in writing the county manager. So.
Several times also we've tried to bring in members from Phoenix Bikes, and I see that Megan Jones is now on our list of people here. Megan, did you have any thoughts? Are there possible members you have in mind?
So this goes into the whole, I mean, yes, on possible members, but also I'd like to go back. I think it was Dana that said, the county manager should be, figuring out who should be on this group. And in the past, they've tried. And like you said, we had a terrible chapter in our history. And I don't know how many people from that era that were brought on actually stuck. But I do see some that are still in the community. But I think, the forced march to be part of the BAC didn't work. I also think that we should respect those that do show up at the meetings and give an opportunity to say, you know what, you've shown up a lot. I see these names that are on here that show up a lot. Let's put them on the committee, and those that are listed at some point, maybe we can have the side conversation to say, you know what, this person shows up a lot. Let's put them on there. I also think with the charter, there's a difference between in-person voting and electronic voting. And again, Dana, I'm agreeing with you all day today, but I agree that at a certain point, if you're not going to say something about it, then you lost your chance to say something about it and you're abstaining from a vote. And, creating more as somebody that had to find votes, especially as chair of Phoenix Bikes, and you're like, please, please, please vote because we have to do this. I think at a certain point, things have to move along because we lose our voice when somebody doesn't use their voice and that person that didn't use their voice wins in that sort of way. So I think there are a lot of great people in the community. I think that I saw a comment that somebody said, the BAC was full. I think that that's something, if somebody's interested in joining or attending a meeting, we shouldn't say that in the first place. I think they should, start coming to the meetings and not discourage that. So, and then one more thing, it's funny you brought up Phoenix Bikes because, again, Dana, you're getting all the credit for this, but even thinking about we represent more than what we look like or who we are or our age or how many children we have, because we think about it as we're riding on the sidewalk and we go, God, somebody on a cargo bike is not going to do well on this, or somebody that's riding at night is not going to do well on this. I'm here to voice that for them, for that person that can't come to the meeting. And I think we all understand that as members of BAC. So I just don't want to go through that chapter again where we lose somebody like Randy who feels like he has to resign. And I'm super happy to see him at these meetings again. He'll always be a BAC in my heart.
Thank you. I agree with everything you just said. And me too. I am so grateful to have Randy with us. The other part of the point I wanted to make earlier is just that I think we would have better luck bringing in members if BAC had a more significant role sometimes. There are times when it feels like Arlington has various committees, including BAC, in order to be able to check it off the box that they have it. But that at least at times, it doesn't seem like staff are really eager to discuss issues with us unless they've like finalized a project. And yet what would be most effective is if we could give our input to the county early in the process. I bet that amongst us, like, we know really well just about every intersection and every pothole in the county. We have so much expertise, be it, engineering expertise or just familiarity with the signals and, the road conditions. We have so much to offer, and yet a lot of times we're only brought into projects at the very end, like at the final stage, to see what county staff have done, and that's great, and we can celebrate or complain about like the end result, but it's not always the best use of BAC time. So I'm not sure how to fix that, but the more early input, it's something that we can work with Elwin on to try and get us engaged earlier in the decision making, so we might actually make a difference. And I think we're way over time, right? It's 8:24. So what else? Oh, before we move on though, I see Ellen put on the agenda that we need somebody for the Neighborhood Complete Streets Commission. I thought we already had somebody on that, like Jillian or David. Do we have anyone on that?
I thought it was Dwight for a very long time.
Yes, it was. Dwight passed away.
Yes, most certainly. Oof. Okay, so we do need a member then. So who would like to participate in Neighborhood Complete Streets? It's a commission, so that means it meets in person, I would guess.
The one caveat is that they only meet 5 to 6 times a year, so it's not a monthly commitment, if that's enticing to anybody.
Do we know like which day of the week or any more details?
Good question. Looks like I can get back to you on that with specifics.
Okay.
Looks
Yeah,
like they'll,
so maybe Cynthia, once Ellen gets back to us, we can, do that kind of through the email. Sometimes people
Yeah.
aren't willing to like speak up in a meeting, or they might want to think about it for a little bit, and then come forward later.
yeah, thanks, Steve. We don't need to make that decision right now. Just making sure that anyone is interested in applying for it. Definitely need someone to sit in that chair.
Yeah.
I don't know much about it, but I'm willing to consider being a part of that. So let me know.
Aaron, you're a rock star. Thank you.
Well, maybe. I might be a poison pill in the program. I don't know.
All right, we'll find out more details.
Sorry. This is Eric Goodman. I just want to note, I was on that for a while for the pedestrian committee, and it really is a good committee. It really looks at a lot of projects, and I would like to see someone other than myself be on it, just because I think it's a good opportunity. But I would just say, Aaron, if you want to be on it, or others, it is definitely a very good committee.
Wonderful to hear.
Yeah, and my colleague Michelle Stafford runs is the staff liaison. She works on our team as well, and she's an amazing resource. She's been with Arlington for a while now, and in addition to looking at capital projects, we also look at recommendations for more traffic calming in neighborhoods. So it's a little bit of everything.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to just throw me under the bus here and assign me to it, and then if I run away, then that's okay too.
Thank you.
The track record isn't good on how to get out of this position, if you remember. So.
Thank you, Aaron. All right, so our next topic is legislative priorities. And this is something we're going to talk about with the PAC at the September 13 meeting. But my thought was we could spend a few minutes going in advance, going through possibilities. I think it's a fairly quick discussion because as far as I'm aware, Jillian and others can correct me, not much was achieved in last year's session, so we can ask for a lot of the same things as we did before. And I can just tell you real quick, I pulled up our letter from last year that we wrote together with the PAC. And we indicated that in the longer term, not for the immediate session, we are very interested in ways to allow local jurisdictions to charge higher registration fees for heavier vehicles, as they are apparently doing in Washington, D.C., Ellen. And that is so cool. But last year, our 5 priority issues for BAC were 1, including bikes in legislation for lead pedestrian intervals so that bicyclists can use the LPIs legally, which is, I believe, still not allowed. But again, correct me if I'm wrong. Number 2, allow local control for implementation of automated speed enforcement, red light running, parking violations, and other traffic issues. Number 3, create a transportation fund for bike ped safety. Number 4, require side underride guards on trucks. That would be so awesome, and it's not that hard to do. And number 5, remove the contributory negligence law in Virginia. We, along with Alabama, North Carolina, and Maryland, have this really backwards law that a bicycle rider or pedestrian who is hit by a motor vehicle is barred from any recovery if she contributed to the crash in any way. So those were our priorities last year. Who would like to tell me what was accomplished? Did any of those go through, or should we press for the very same items? Collier.
Cynthia, unfortunately, I can't answer your question, but I think what your question is leading to is that is this the most effective way for us to get legislation through our Arlington delegation? And I ask that is that couldn't we or should we be coordinating with some of our neighbors like Alexandria, like Fairfax County? They're sort of equivalent organizations so that we're all sort of on the same page. Because to get any legislation done, we need to get multiple legislators all working together on the same things rather than us doing things independently. I see we have our friend from Wabon here, Mr. O'Brien. I don't want to give him more things to do, but that is something I think need to be thinking about rather than us sort of working independently. As much as we think we can do a lot here in Arlington, our voice is very small when it gets down to Richmond. So I'll let others speak to that.
Can I jump in here because I've been pretty active on the Virginia Bicycling Federation's state legislative team. So to answer your question, Cynthia, no, we didn't get anything accomplished last year. We came really close, but from a BA, so if anyone else is interested in getting involved in VBF's effort, Jim Durham is the leader of the advocacy efforts, and I'm happy to help loop you in to our efforts there. That is very much statewide coordination. We're looking across the state and across the Commonwealth to try to get consensus and get things done. One thing that did come out of last year is Barbara Favola, who did sponsor a bill on essentially making allowing cyclists to go on leading pedestrian intervals, got VDOT to start talking to a group from VBF, myself from safety, and Wyatt from the Coalition for from Virginia Conservation Network on a few issues that have come up lately. Specifically, we talked about the safety stop, which is letting people on bikes treat stop signs as yields. We talked about the bikes going with the walk signal. We talked about riding to abreast, which is something that we got in the Bicyclist Safety Act of, I think it was 2020. And then very frustratingly, Lynn Youngkin and the Republicans overturned not this past year, but the year before. That's something that I think VDOT understands is actually better to go back to allowing people to ride two abreast, especially to allow family biking. And we talked about one other thing, and I'm apologizing that it's not coming to my head right now. But I think that and those talks continue. So if you want to get involved in that sort of stuff, I'm happy to, talk offline. For the position of this committee advises the county manager the county manager talks with the board to determine Arlington's legislative priorities. And I do think what's been a disappointment is that Arlington has not stepped up to the plate to help us with any of these. So while Senator Frivola and Delegate Sullivan, who represent Arlington, were advocates for allowing bikes to go with the walk signal, no Arlington staff stepped up to talk about it. In contrast, Alexandria's Vision Zero coordinator has been vocal and been active in conversations in Richmond for years about a number of legislative pieces that would make biking and walking safer. And so what would be great is if we didn't just throw these up to the manager, but we actually got someone from Arlington to speak up for the bills when it comes time. And I think the list that we had last year is fine. I would draw people's attention to e-bike rebates. Now that e-bike rebates are becoming more widespread, they're popping up in localities and states all over the country, and a lot of them come with data collection. That the data that's coming back is very, very clear that e-bikes replace car trips, which is a win from a sustainability perspective. It's a win from an equity perspective, and it's a win from a safety perspective. And so it's a really, really big deal. And then there's also some creative things people are doing, like, for example, e-bike safety. The e-bike rebates are coming with a few strings attached, like taking a 15-minute online safety class, or only being able to use the rebates for bikes that are actually safe, which is turning the market, in absence of regulation, which there isn't sufficient e-bike regulation. It is sort of adjusting the market to focus more on these bikes that are safe. There's lots of good to be done under the guise of e-bike rebates, and it's kind of ridiculous that we give rebates for these cars that kill people, but not for e-bikes, which are the fastest selling EVs.
So e-bike rebates, that would be done as a Virginia, that's a Virginia issue and not an Arlington issue, or could it be both?
I mean, the way the Commonwealth works, if they wanted to go the like light route, they could just authorize localities to do it. But I would love to see a statewide rebate program along the lines of the EV rebate program. It could even be part of the EV rebate program. And yeah, I think Eric just posted a link, and then People for Bikes has an excellent summary of various e-bike rebate programs.
Great. Well, that sounds like a goal number 6 that we could put on the list if others agree. Could you also clarify, I mean, I'm showing my ignorance here, but what does it mean to get a staff member from Arlington to speak in the state legislature? So how does that, do they physically have to go and participate?
No, they can do it online.
Okay.
You can testify, everyone can testify virtually. But it's just testifying in front of subcommittees and committees. The hardest thing about it is you get almost no notice. You find out like basically the day before or the day of whether your thing is coming up. But it's much easier for the staff being paid to do it than us volunteers who have to sneak out at lunch time and do it. But yeah, so and they recognize county staff, I think separately from public comment. But I mean, it basically is the same as public comment, but it carries a lot of weight when the counties are speaking for it.
And you have someone in mind?
I mean, Alexandria has their Vision Zero coordinator do it. Christine is amazing. She would be great, but I don't want to step on toes by telling staff how they should allocate things. But for Alexandria, when they send Sarah, she can speak as to their experience. That she can say, hey, we've put up signs to let this happen, but man, it would be easier if we just changed, because in Alexandria they have a different interpretation of the law than Arlington does, and they have places where they put up signs saying cyclists may follow this pedestrian signal, and so they effectively get the same outcome as cyclists can follow the leading pedestrian interval. It's my understanding Arlington does not interpret the law the same way and is not willing to put up those same signs, but instead is considering bike-specific signals to achieve the same outcome, which is obviously just more expensive. And so if we had someone who could speak to that, how, we have lots of people who bike, we see no safety problem with letting bikes go when people walk. And it would save us money. That would be a great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for the next joint backpack meeting next month, Alana Cranen, who is Arlington's staff liaison, will be attending, and she's going to be our champion to get all of our thoughts together to hopefully get a cohesive package from both committees.
All right. So does anyone have any more thoughts on other issues that we should raise in the legislative discussion next month, or should we move on?
Can I just really respond to what Collier had said before?
Yes, please.
So he had asked about coordination with other counties. I don't think we can do that directly through the BAC. I think it goes beyond sort of our charter and what we can actually do, because we do advise the county manager, but we can certainly raise that up to the legislative liaison and say, it would be good to get a regional perspective in terms of, some of these issues, so they become, they're more effective. So it may be one way that we could present that.
That makes sense. Thank you. All right. We're running a little short on time, as always happens in good discussions. Elwin is going to talk briefly about protected bike lanes.
Yeah, I'll be pretty quick. I have a few slides drafted, but I want to hear more from you guys rather than hear myself talk, especially when it comes to protected bike lanes, which I rely on all the time to get around. I'm a pretty confident rider, but there's a lot of roads, even in DC, a lot of roads like New York Ave that I'll never bike on. So this has been an ongoing discussion amongst folks, and if I don't properly address some of the concerns that folks have had, please let me know. I'm still learning the ropes of my position as being as liaison. But yeah, overall, I'm going to talk briefly with how we decide what types of facilities go into the types of barriers for protected bike lanes. First, I want to go through some terminology that we have drafted in the master MTP, as well as providing a brief overview of where we are in terms of our overall network, and then talking through some brief steps about how we do the prioritization and evaluation of our bikeways. So these are basically the types of bikeways that the MTP lays out on. We created a new multimodal toolbox, which takes to the next step forward in terms of providing the nitty gritty of, how these types of facilities are scored, where they can go in context with, things like retail, with garage loading, for example, and it provides more context with regards to separation, how much separation, how much width of the bike lanes, and things like that. But overall, there's 3 basic bike lanes. Here on the left is the traditional bike lane, which is, paint on the ground, no separation from traffic. Then you have the buffered bike lanes, which is still just paint, but it provides 1 to 3 feet of separation from cars. And then you have the protected bike lanes, which provides the same amount of width, but it has some kind of physical vertical separation, whether it be a flex post or what have you. So here in Arlington, we don't just have protected bike lanes. They come in all shapes and sizes. This one with the barrels is on Pershing Drive. The one in the top right is on Wilson. It uses just flex post with on-street parking as a buffer. And then we have the bottom left as a relatively new bikeway that was upgraded along Clark Street, which uses these pill-shaped precast concrete devices, which are basically drilled down into the street itself. But then, we're starting to move in the direction of having full-blown protected physical and vertical and horizontal separation with these concrete curb and guttered bikeways. And this is the new one that's going into 8th Street right now. And we're ideally, every every bike lane would be like this, but oftentimes it's challenging with regards to, things like funding, available right of way, any kind of constraints in the street, what have you. But ideally, in a perfect world, every bikeway would look like this eventually. So yeah, overall, this is the existing bikeway network that we have. I want to call attention to the dark blue lines, which are classified as protected bike lanes. So basically taking all these PBLs from this overall bikeway network and just pointing out that, the first thing that you see is there's not that many of them, unfortunately, and also that they're not connecting with each other. But also that you'll see that there's much more focus on activity centers and density, which tend to provide the greatest amount of people most amount of opportunity for more riders to come together to ride on the network bike lanes. But then when we get down to it by classification, it's not just calling these out as protected bikeways. They each have different physical barriers. So the ones in purple, which is Eads and a portion of Fairfax Drive, these are full-blown concrete curb protected bikeways. The ones in orange are just utilizing flex post, but the vast majority of the protected bikeways we have in Arlington so far use a mixture of flex post plus parking as physical barriers from moving traffic. So yeah, this is the philosophy that's been starting to turn up. A big part of the Crystal City Bikeway Network was creating a hyper-focused network of bikeways all connected to each other. And you can start to see that it's starting to come together slowly but surely, with 8th Street being some of the newest facilities, but also Army Drive is under construction as well. And a lot of these facilities use precast concrete curbs, but also concrete that's poured in place, which is ideal. So yeah, overall, the question came up about where do the bikeways come from the most part? They basically come it basically comes from two streams. Basically, if it's county initiated, that basically means that we intend to build these bikeways, depending on the amount of financial resources that we have and staff capacity. So a lot of these bikeways are either done as a quick build project, which we have a scoring matrix to decide how we prioritize where these projects will go in place. But anything more permanent with curb and gutter, things like that, will require CIP projects. So we do a mixture of both, but overall we cover more ground through quick build projects, since they typically just use paint and flex post and temporary materials, with the idea that these temporary installations will eventually lead to a capital project once the funding comes up. But regardless of that, we try to be as opportunistic as possible with regards to installing new protected bikeways. A lot of progress being made from private development, such as this one, which for folks who don't know, this used to be a Wendy's along Wilson Boulevard at the intersection of Courthouse. And this is going to be a new mixed-use residential project, which is building these off-site bikeways that will be fully protected with curb and gutter concrete poured in place, which will tie up with this new bikeway project that is being built with this developer that's catty corner to the southwest. So when those projects are both completed, there'll be a protected bikeway all the way from this median island all the way down to I believe North Vite Street. But then aside from that, we also install protected bikeways when we get a chance as part of resurfacing project, which is one important task that the Complete Streets Commission does, is basically helping us identify projects where we could have more protected bikeways in context with resurfacing or water projects. So if the county is going to be tearing up the road anyways, might as well do what we can to improve the bike facilities, or even implement facilities that are directed through the MTP bike element. And then of course there's VDOT projects, which we sometimes partner on to get more facilities as well. Some of these next few slides are just a few repeats from the last time we talked about prioritization. The MTP basically provides general guidance for where these facilities will go, and it definitely affects the scoring and evaluation that we have, basically ensuring that bikeways go where they have the most impact in terms of equity, in terms of areas that have high air quality issues, areas to connect destinations, job centers, park spaces, schools, what have you. And then this all kind of flows into this the scoring matrix. And then once we determine a bikeway, we basically have it scored and ranked, and then that's when we take it to our design folks to basically engineer the type of facility based on the metrics that we have, and then that's when we go out and build it. But as soon as we build it, then that's when the evaluation takes place. So even though we may have something installed, we're still going to be evaluating and collecting data, making sure that anything that's affecting the network is being tracked in terms of crashes and what have you. Then last but not least, I definitely just want to just show as an example like the things that we look at in terms of where we can install new bikeways. This is along Clarendon Boulevard between Quinn Street and Oat Street. And we're starting to be more altruistic in terms of not just looking at crashes, but also the location of infrastructure, utilities, where we have existing, painting buffers on the ground that could be maybe installed with concrete. Here's a new CIP project that will be installing a new bus boarding island, in addition to concrete protection for folks biking down across Pierce Street. We're also going to be installing a new bike turn box here, so folks heading east but maybe turning left onto Pierce Street will have an area of refuge prior to turning onto Pierce Street. But then we're also collecting more data with regards to things like blocked bikeways through the reporter problem function, and basically tracking any kind of opportunities to partner with partners such as WMATA or Capital Bike Share or what have you. But yeah, it's a very brief overview. Just want to open up the floor for questions.
All right, who has questions? Dana?
Yeah. So you have all these things, you know, who makes the decision and how is the decision made what to use? You know, because the ones that the developers installed next to the Amazon site don't allow the cyclist to bail out of the bike lane if necessary. The ones on Potomac Ave are 40 feet apart and allow the cars to park in the bike lane or to drift into the bike lanes when they park. You know, you have, you know, Arlington's has installed flex posts at 10, 20, and 40 feet intervals. You know, how is that decision made?
Thanks for the question, Dana. It varies from context to context. Basically, with regards to the one on Eads that was built in partnership with Amazon, that was a project that was basically the intent was to fulfill the vision of the MTP in terms of having the highest quality bike facility in that area, given the amount of new employees, new folks living in the neighborhood. So this facility is basically determined to be like the highest priority for concrete separation, while also improving access to bus stops and having a place of refuge for people crossing the street. So it's not just a concrete buffer for the bicyclist, it's also fulfilling multiple things for all users of the street.
No, on the south side of 15th, you have tire stops and flex posts alternating.
Yeah, a lot of that is, I believe, tied to specific temporary treatments until the entire corridor is built like this. I mean, it's going to take a while. Eventually, entirety of East Street will look like this. But for the time being, we have to basically work with what we have with in terms of resources.
The entire of Eads will look like what? Lower right-hand corner?
That's right.
Okay. 15th Street. Yeah. It doesn't appear there's a design guide. Is there a design guide? Is there something you can give a contractor or a developer and say, do it this way?
Yeah, we have the multimodal toolbox, which we use internally for our projects, but we also use that as a resource to share with contractors and consultants.
And you enforce it?
Yeah, a lot of that is done through the site plan development process. And a lot of that is tied to, you know, whenever we review private development, that's tied to conditions. So we have folks in DES that work hand in hand with our partners at CPHD. And they basically, I'm not involved with that process, but I personally review things more so after things have been negotiated. But basically, we have staff that have these preset conditions, and we work hand in hand with our plant planners and engineers and other departments to basically make sure that this is the facility that's required. And depending on the scale of the project, that determines the scale of the offsite improvements. So the developers are not just on the hook for their frontage improvements; they're also on the hook for offsite improvements, depending on the scale of the project.
Okay, maybe the best thing to do, if you could share that document, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
We're almost out of time. I see Zach's hand.
I just wanted to comment on the thickness of the thermoplastic being used in the protected bike lanes. On the Clarendon Boulevard, my 2-year-old literally cries because of the bumps of the paint that is not painted, is thermoplastic, and it is so thick that it's like going over slaloms.
Do you mean the paint that's like the bike signal on the street, or
The bike signal on the street, the green paint that's striped, so it's like it's I don't know if that's standard for what Arlington does. I don't know if that's standard for what everyone does, but it makes it so that I don't like riding in the very nice protected bike lane.
Yeah, let's see. That's definitely important to know. I mean, the whole purpose of these bikeways is to make sure that all ages and abilities feel safe and comfortable riding in them. So if something is making someone uncomfortable, then that's not fulfilling the spirit of it. So like that's definitely something that we need to discuss internally. But yeah, thank you for letting me know about the thickness.
Eric, did you have your hand up, or is it from before? All right, Jillian.
Sorry about that again.
No worries.
Thank you. And thanks, Owen, for reporting on this. Honestly, I would love to be debating the thickness of the barriers and all of that stuff, but we are so far behind. We have such a lack of low stress bike routes in the county. And if you go back to that map, I think that puts a really big spotlight on it. These are completely not connected to each other. Even if you were to superimpose the trails on there, they're not connected to the trails. They're not a network. And when I talk to people about, will they bike? Will they let their kids bike to school? Will, they want to buy an e-bike, but where can they go on it? They look at this and they say, but where can I go? How can I get around? I live in Cherrydale, really close to Quincy. Quincy takes us into the heart of Boston, which has a million destinations. But even that Quincy bike lane, which you have marked on there as protected, is not fully protected, even for the stretch that you marked. Because there's the stretch by Taco Bamba that has no protection at all. And then there's the stretch by the ABC store where we haven't managed to put any concrete, so everybody just parks in it. It's a joke. Like, we don't need to spend our time talking about which barriers are better. We need to spend our time getting low stress bike infrastructure in. And yeah, sure, I have a preference of one versus the other, but I don't care. I'm not even going to tell you what it is, because I just want you to focus on getting safe routes. The other thing is, I appreciate that you, and if I put this in the chat, but if you look across the river, there's some way to do it where you can do it quickly. When I moved here, Arlington was way far ahead of DC on bike infrastructure. And in 15 years, we have backslid just sort of unbelievably, because we've done almost nothing. We've put these little tiny marks on the map when DC has built out an actual low stress bike network. How'd they do it? I don't know. What are we doing wrong? I don't know. I hope that you will take that upon yourself to figure it out and figure out like what it is about their system that they can actually get this stuff built and in the ground. And, we can talk about the rest. And then the other point, the point you started out with was, we've built these things around the retail centers, which is great. That's where the big buildings are. That's where the stores are. But we need to also think about the schools. Kids cannot drive. They cannot drive. They are children. And in order to get around, short of waving a magic wand and improving our public transportation network a lot, biking is a really, really good way for them to get around. It's great for child development. It is great for public health. And it happens to save the county directly money by reducing the number of cars going to schools and reducing the need for school buses. But none of these protected bike lanes are helping kids get to school. So, and if you, luckily the schools are everywhere in the county and students live everywhere in the county. So if you focused on how can we make it so that all the kids can get to school, start with high school kids, then middle school kids, then elementary school kids? We would end up with a safe network. And in the meantime, I think you have a lot of buy-in, and I think you'd be efficiently using county resources. So thank you. I know this is not your fault directly. I know it's sort of like giving you the work, but I honestly, like, and I appreciate that you've been thinking about materials and all that other stuff, but I don't care materials. I just want it there. I just want it in. Whatever is the cheapest, whatever your bosses want to buy, go get the pilot project, go get the stuff that people are giving away because they want to see it on the ground. Awesome. Whatever it takes. Go protect everything that's right now buffered. Go put protection. Oh, a friend, I promised I'd say this. A friend was parking her car in a parking spot that was next to a conventional bike lane, and she almost got hit as she was getting out of the car because an Uber driver was going through the bike lane to turn right. And if we had just put protection of the bike lane for that little bit of space right at the intersection where we don't have a car parking space, then the Uber driver would not have been able to sort of cut through the bike lane to turn right to cut around people, if that makes sense. In other words, if we can just protect as much of the cycling infrastructure as possible, even if it's just the 5 feet right beside an intersection, we're actually making the entire transportation network safer. Just sneak in a couple flex posts until we can do better than flex posts, and I think that's it. But yeah, let's do it. Let's just get it on the ground, and then we can talk about upgrading it later. Oh yeah, my last thing. I love how you said terminology. If you can talk to the rest of people in DHS about terminology, whoever's working with Plan Langston Boulevard has put in buffered bike lanes that I think are actually protected bike lanes, but they're calling them buffered. I don't know. I don't get why, but like, let's just as a county have like the same terminology on like what's protected, what's buffered, and what's nothing. And let's not build any more nothing. So thank you.
Yeah, I hear you, Jillian. Thank you so much for that. Selfishly, that's a big reason why I moved to DC, because I'm a pretty big biker myself. I have 2 bikes that I use to get around. I do have a car, but I'd rather get around by my bike or by metro if I can. So like everything that you mentioned, I agree 100%. Like I want to live in a community that's very bikeable. Not only like crazy facilities personally, I'm happy to just be in a buffered or a bike lane that's flex post. I hope that we could change things.
Aaron.
Elwin, since you mentioned you like to bike and you live in Northeast DC, is that right? I've been around there a lot biking, and my biggest issue there is there's a lot of protected bike lanes, but they're always full of broken glass and other debris. Some places in the city, the leaves build up 6 months after they fell off the tree. They're still not cleaned up. So one thing I just ask is, as you guys are working on improving these, more and more protected bike lanes, we keep them clear, not just of cars and Ubers and trash containers and stuff, but of broken glass. They need to be swept more often than the streets, because the cars push the debris into the bike lanes, whether they're buffered, protected, or whatever. The rain sweeps stuff into those extended gutters. So we just really need to make a priority of making it usable, protected as well. So thank you.
I know that we're way over time, so maybe we can continue this discussion, have a part B next, sometime in the next couple of months. And that's a very important question also that Aaron just raised about the maintenance component, and frankly, I'm not even sure how the county does it. So maybe we can focus on that a little bit more. Often I avoid the lanes because of precisely what Aaron just said. I don't want a flat tire. I'd rather, ride with the cars and uh, and keep my tires in good shape. But we are way over time. It's 9:10. Thank you, everybody who is still here. Does anyone have pressing BAC business or PAC business they want to raise? The one thing that we have not sort of finalized our discussion on is how to proceed on a letter to the county manager with regard to National Airport. And so if there is interest in having a BAC letter or possibly a BAC PAC letter to Mr. Schwartz, then some of us can put a succinct letter together with our top priorities and hopefully get that to Mr. Schwartz fairly soon, since the deadline for input is the 28th and we want to get our message to the county staff well before then. So who has thoughts? Is that something that the committee is interested in pursuing? Are we all asleep by now?
It would be a back letter alone. We really don't have time to get the back involved. But
okay.
You're welcome to use anything that I wrote.
I will.
I think that we could just Arlington's really not going to they should be providing input, but it's not clear they will. And they certainly, if we provide them input, tonight, Arlington's not going to be able to craft their response by the 28th. So I would just say we individuals, respond directly to MWA, and we can CC, Elwin or DES or whoever you think we should CC, Elwin. If you could figure that out and let us know, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure.
Is Raymond still here?
Yes, I am.
So maybe this is something that you would like to speak to, because we had talked about it on the weekend. You were approached by MWA, if I'm not mistaken, and were you planning to submit anything? I mean, if we gave you our top points, would that help you? Or you had mentioned a possible site visit with them. What would be most useful to you?
So, when we spoke, I mentioned that I did get the initial invite, and then they said they would follow up with me, but they did not follow up with me. So, I mentioned to you I would follow up with our contact to see if there was any updates or what he had to say about it, because I haven't heard anything since that initial contact. So, I mean, any comments you have, if you forward it to me, I can add it to my conversation and just while I have them on the phone, put it in there, put that request in there. So any information you have, any requests, like, yeah, I will forward that to. He's a main he works at DCA. I don't think it was MWA that I'm not. Yeah. So this is an employee who works at the airport, who manages communications and stuff like that made that initial outreach. So again, I could forward those comments and anything you have. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I hope we could still do a site visit like that. That's what they originally offered to us. to get direct input from Bike Arlington, but like I said, that went silent pretty quickly. And from what you filled me in on, it sounds like yeah, they went pretty internal with the approach they want to go with.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll see what we produce. We'll get it to you, whether or not we send it through Mr. Schwartz, or maybe we could just send it to you. That might be the most useful, just so you have all of our talking points.
Yeah,
and then
I would say let's take both routes, because I'm not sure if my contact at DCA will do anything with that information. Like just
okay.
thinking of the worst possibility that can happen. But because he said that we would get this contact right away and get the meeting set up, and none of that happened. So just thinking about what actually is happening, I think both routes make most sense.
Okay, from a regulatory standpoint, if they have this draft EA on the street, they've opened a docket. The only way to get it into the docket is straight in.
Gotcha.
As described in their process. If you send it to somebody at MWA, it doesn't count. It likely won't count as formal input. They might still use it, but they won't have any obligation to respond to it or reflect on it. But if it goes into the docket, it's part of the record.
That's a really good point. So, do we know if Arlington is going to submit a letter?
I'm not sure, but I could follow up with our contacts to see if anybody has.
Okay. Because that would, I mean, we'll keep working on it anyways. I know Pam is working and Dana's working, and I've at least started working on it. So we will either, just send our individual comments or community group comments or whatever, or we can if Raymond or Elwin or anyone finds out that there is going to be an Arlington letter, then that would be really good to know, and we will try and get material to that individual ASAP.
Yeah, I will bring this to the team, and I'll let you know what we can do for sure. 100%. We're in full support of getting DCA fixed.
All right. Us too. Any other thoughts before we close? I know we're way over time.
I can turn off the recording.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.